Our next presenter is Deanna Ledoux. She's a member of the Muskeg Lake Cree Nation and has worked tirelessly for First Nations communities in the areas of life skills and grief recovery through her own company, of which she is the CEO. I think that's pretty cool. A young Native woman that is a CEO. I think that's amazing. Her company is Squewak Asokana e Osichetik. Bonnie, I know I could use some brush up on my Cree, is one of the leaders out there in our First Nations community doing this hard work. She's a champion dancer, but she's an educator as well, and she is here to share her thoughts on education and a healthy pathway forward in our communities. Please welcome me in bringing up to the stage Ms. Deanna Ledoux.
Good morning, everybody. First off, I'd like to acknowledge the elders in the room. It's always good to see our grandmothers and grandfathers in the room, and also Uncle. I'm so happy you're here. I have a cold, so holy man, you have to bear with me. So, I see some role models in here. What am I doing wrong? I see some role models in here. My role models. You're one of them, Uncle. My mom, Kim. My auntie mom, she's sitting way in the back, trying to hide. Auntie Darlene, hi. A little bit about myself. I am a mom, first of all. I'm a mother. I have 7 children, and I'm a grandmother. I'm not that young. I had 3 granddaughters. I have 2 granddaughters now. Recently lost one January 1st of this year. And when Chris asked me to come and speak on what I do to the teachers, I thought, what a great opportunity to introduce my latest venture, which is going into schools and working with teachers and giving them a skill set to help them identify when they're working with children that are displaying symptoms of intergenerational trauma. When you guys go into the education field, they don't teach you how to deal with kids that are dealing with trauma. They don't give you a practical skill set that will help you identify when a child is coming into your classroom and acting out. They'll teach you how to give labels. The education system is really good at applying labels to our children. They'll teach you how to label them ADD, ADHD, or just plain bad. I've seen it in all the schools that I've gone to work in. And I've also, and growing up and in the environment that I did grow up in, I grew up in St. Michael's Indian Residential School. I'm the 3rd generation in my family, the last generation in my family that attended residential school. My grandfather and my father, we all attended the same school. And I look back to how we behaved as children in the class. I look back at how we behaved as children in the class, and I look at the children today in the classroom, and they display those same behaviors. The attention seeking, which is often mislabeled as acting out. They're wanting attention, is what they want. And they're wanting to have that need met of needing attention, affection. But because they're doing it in a manner that disrupts the classroom, they get labeled. Recently, I went to Louisville School. The principal there, he's also a new principal. Reminds me of Evan somewhat. He's a new principal there, and he identified a lot of issues, or the teachers identified a lot of issues that were going on in the classroom. There's a lot of gangs in Hobima. This is Hobima. Louisville is one of the 4 bands. There's a lot of gangs, and a lot of the children display gang-like behaviors. And I seen it for myself for the first time when I went it was actually just 3 weeks ago that I went. And I watched grade 2 and 3 and 4 kids come in with no sense of self. They dressed like they were from a black culture. They talk like they're from a black culture. Used really derogatory slang like they're from a black culture. One of the things that I learned about me after going to the School of Indian Social Work and obtaining a degree in social work, I thought ego kicked in, and I thought that I was somebody because I had this paper, this degree. What they don't teach you in university is how to honor yourself, where you come from, your history, your ceremonies. That's what they don't teach you. And I was fortunate enough I have family here, the Tutusas family. Kim and Arson are my adopted parents, and Uncle Edwin and Auntie Melly, my aunt and uncle. A lot of what I've learned is from this family. Talk louder, the message says. I have a cold. A lot of what I've learned is from this family. And part of, I was invited to take part in, every time I go forward, I start humming, in a program. And I was more attracted to the title of the program than I was the content. The program was the First Nations Life Skills Coach program, facilitator training program. And because I lived outside of myself back then, and I wasn't dealing with my own history, I wasn't dealing with my own issues. And in the School of Indian Social Work, you're not required to deal with your own issues. They teach you policy. Just like in the ITEP program, they teach you how to deliver a curriculum. There is no courses that require you to look at yourself and where you're at with yourself, which I think is necessary. I was speaking with Irene about the master's program that I want to take, and my goal is to develop the class that will teach interpersonal skills for teachers, up-and-coming teachers, and also require anybody that's going to be working with First Nations children to look at themselves, to really look at themselves. Because any of us can go out there with a degree and pretend that we're something we're not. If you don't know your history, if you don't know your ceremonies, if you don't know the songs, that's not Indigenous. This conference title is Think Indigenous. How are you teaching Indigenous? What are you using in your classrooms? What are you applying to yourself? And when I was invited to take the program, the First Nations Life Skills Coach program, again, it was ego that kicked in. I was attracted to the title, because when you have title, it's a label. You don't have to look at who's looking back at you in the mirror. You don't have to look at your own history. And for me, my history, there was a lot of abuse that happened in the school. So I didn't want to look at my own history. Family breakdown. My own family systems was really dysfunctional. My family of origin, my siblings, my parents, there was no communication. There was never anybody asking, how are you feeling? What do you need? Do you want a hug? None of that happened in my family of origin. Oh, I'm lying. When my grandma was alive, it did. When my grandmother was alive, it did. She was very affectionate. And that stopped when she left. So when I took this program and I started it, I almost ran, because a lot of it is process-oriented training. And the program is short. It's 7 weeks. And if any of you teachers ever have the opportunity to take it, and if you're really serious about making change in the lives of the children that you're working with, think about it. But for me, again, when I started the program, I almost ran because it required me to look at myself. It required me to process old hurts. It required me to, basically, it teaches you if you're going to talk the talk, you better walk the walk. And it literally kicked my butt into dealing with life. As educated First Nations people, we have a responsibility to these children. We have a responsibility I have to take an oath as a social worker. I have to take an ethics oath that I'm going to conduct myself in a certain manner. Also with the life skills coach training program, we have to take an oath. You have to be drug and alcohol free. You have to be addiction free. And you have to be willing to let fellow coaches call you on your behaviors if you're self-destructing, or if you're doing things to hurt other people. And that's a lot. For me, that was a lot, because I was constantly, despite having this degree that gave me a title, that gave me a label, those degrees don't mean nothing if you're not looking after yourself. That BEd, that MEd, that BISW, that MSW, they don't mean nothing if you are not looking after yourself. If you are not actively bettering yourself as a person, if you are not willing to learn your own history, to honor your own history, to make an attempt to learn the ceremonies, to learn the songs, none of those papers are any good. You may as well be non-native, if that's the case. Back to Louis Bull. When I got to the school, there was about half and half teachers, First Nations and non-First Nations teachers, and they were in a panic. The teachers were in a panic. And the toughest class that they had was grade 1. Grade 1 was the class that was giving the most difficulty. And I asked if I could go into the classroom and if I could work with the kids in a group. And I asked the teacher to observe. I asked her not to sit with us. I asked her to observe. I wanted to see where these kids were at with themselves. And I did a circle check with the kids. And I introduced myself, and I told them who I was and that I was a mom and I was a cookum. And when I said cookum, they warmed up right away. And then I told them about myself, where I'm from, and that recently I had experienced a loss, that I had lost a granddaughter that was a little bit younger than them. Oh, pardon me, she was a little bit older than them. My granddaughter was 9. And they were all like, "Aw." You know, children are really sincere when they're showing emotions. Children are really, really honest. If you want honesty, you go ask a preschooler. If you want an honest answer to any question, go ask a 3 or 4-year-old. If you want to go ask a 3 or 4-year-old, does my butt look fat in these jeans? They'll tell you if your butt looks fat in those jeans. Kids are really honest. So these kids started talking, and I asked them, tell me something about yourselves. Tell me how many siblings you have, if you have a kukuma or a mushum, if you live with your mom and dad. So they all went around one by one, and there was 13 in that particular grade 1 class, the class that was giving the most trouble, the class that had the most energy, the most conflict. And the teacher sat off, and I could see her body as the children shared. And by the time we were done, there was 4 kids in the class that had siblings that were shot in drive-by shootings, in the gang-related shootings. And the last one, the one that she told me was the baddest kid, he was the absolute baddest kid. He watched his grandfather be stabbed in a drinking fight, the one that gave her the most problems. He said they were drinking beer, and I come up and there was yelling. and the guy took a knife and he stabbed my mushum here. And he was holding his heart. And that's when the teacher got up and she walked out. And I thanked them all for sharing. And I got to do more work with them. I was there for an entire week, so I got to work with each one individually. And I did grief work with these kids. Most of that class was grieving. Most of that class was dealing with really traumatic issues, not just intergenerational trauma, but immediate trauma that was still happening every day because of the gangs in their community. And when I went and talked to the teacher, she was a mess. She was crying outside. And I debriefed with her, and she said, I didn't know none of that. I didn't know none of that. She just, I just come here and I, deliver my curriculum, and she said, I don't even know what to say. And I said, when you decided to become a teacher, did you know you were going to come work on a First Nation? She goes, yeah. She said, but I'm so naive. I'm so naive. She said, I didn't even know. I said, do you know any First Nations history? She said, no. She said, I've learned about the residential schools just a little bit, here and there. She said, but I don't really know any history. And I told her, I said, if you really want to effectively work with these children, go learn our history. Learn what issues, intergenerational issues, these children are bringing into the class. I said, and start checking in with your kids. There's some work that took a training with my family called Journey Work and the Journey Practitioner Program. And in Africa, they did a pilot project in a community, a war-ravaged community where they had like a 5% success rate with children even showing up at school because there was a chance they might get murdered on the way to school. And because of all the issues, in any case, after 6 months of doing journey work with the children, the outcomes of the children, even being able to learn, had improved up to 90%. These kids, because nobody was checking in with them, because nobody was asking what was happening, just like the kids in Hobima. What's happening at home? How are you? What do you need? That's one of the things I teach the teachers, to ask the kids when they're acting out. That's what the teachers say. This kid's always acting out. This kid's bad. And the teacher of that grade 1 class, her tears were guilt. She said, I feel guilty. She said, in my mind, I'm always saying negative things about that little boy that watched his mushum get stabbed. She said, and I didn't know that he bought that's what he was carrying. And I'm sure there's situations where you guys are, as teachers, have that one student that acts out, that one student that's always wanting attention, that one student who you might even wish just wouldn't show up at school one day, just to give you a break. But that one student is the one that needs you the most. That one student. If you took the time to say, what do you need? Kids are honest. They'll tell you what they need. Again, it's a simple skill set that I learned. And the training that I took, the life skills coach training, was 7 weeks. I can say with the utmost conviction that I learned more in 7 weeks of training than I did in 4 years of university. I'm grateful that I have my degree. Did I learn much? I learned how to implement oppressive policies, oppressive social work policies. I learned how to keep people stuck in a system, but I didn't learn how to work with my people. When I took the coach training is where I learned how to work with my people, where I learned how to work with me, how to get honest with me. Because again, as professionals, whether it's social work or teachers, you have a responsibility to these children, to the community, to conduct yourself in such a manner. It's not okay, and I say this to the social work students that I work with, it's not okay to go out and get drunk. And with the chance that your children, that your kids, that your students are going to see you. Maybe you think it's none of my business. But if you're teaching my kids, you're damn right it's my business. If you're going to take that degree and you're going to use it and you're going to wave that title around, then honor it. Honor it and honor who you are. I was talking about learning from individuals. I had mentioned I have 7 kids. I have 3 school-age kids, and their dad and I are separated, and we take turns. We alternate school years. And the first school year, actually, we were both in Alberta, and then the second school year, I brought them back to here, to the Cree Immersion School, which I think is fabulous in Saskatoon. The Cree Immersion School is awesome. My kids speak Stoney. My kids are Nakota, and they speak Nakota. So when we came, they had a language. They had a language, a solid foundation. They go to ceremonies. I take them to ceremony. I take them home to Palmaker. Palmaker is home for me. Duck Lake is home for me. Being raised in the residential school and in the system, I have several sets of parents, and I'm really blessed that way. But I take my kids to ceremony. And so they have that foundation. They have that language. They know how to conduct themselves. My 5-year-old knows how to conduct himself when he goes into ceremony. More recently, because their dad and I are separated, their dad came to sweat out in Palmaker, and I watched my 5-year-old tell his dad what he needed to do in the lodge. I'm sure his dad knew, but he had never seen the kids in ceremony. That's not something that we did together with them. And I watched my 5-year-old say, "Hey, Dad, if you get hot, you can just lie down here and cover your head." And his dad's like, "Okay." But he knows what to do. And they know those songs. They know who they are. When he introduces himself, he says, "My name is Wakhazi, and I'm Stoney. I'm a Stoney man," he says. They identify with Stoney, with being Stoney. And that's okay. I say that like that's a bad thing. Sorry, Mom. I'm Cree. I identify as Cree. So. But they have that base. In Saskatoon, they have the Cree language program. And when I brought my kids here, I put them in the Cree immersion. And the Cree teacher, after about a month, she said, my youngest daughter's name, her name is Ledoux. Ledoux Ganudad. It means windy in the springtime. And she says, wow, and in school they call her Windy because it's hard for the kids to pronounce her Nakota name. She says, Windy's picked up Cree just like that. She says, it's amazing. She said she was in grade 2. And she said she speaks just as good Cree as the grade 4 students that have been in immersion since grade 1. And that's because she had a language already. She already knew Nakota, so picking up Cree was really easy for her. And the teacher, they would exchange. They did a language exchange. The Cree teacher would ask her questions in Stoney, so Windy, also known as Chichi. Chichi would teach her Nakota words, and they had this exchange going. So my kids are not fluent in Cree, but they understand. They can eavesdrop like me. I don't have my language at all. I know when I'm getting heck, and I can eavesdrop if they're speaking both English and Cree. I see my niece here. I just wanted to share a story. Prior to moving back to Saskatoon with my children, I worked in Alberta, and I would stay with my Nimis. Her name's Lillian Gadwa. And like I said, if you watch young people, you can learn from them. And one morning, I watched my niece get her kids ready for school. And she got them all ready, and I've watched her do this several times. But this actually was just the beginning of the school year that time. And I watched her line them all up. And she did this thing with them, and I thought it was really, really amazing. Really, for me, it was profound, because I hadn't seen it until that moment. She lined up her kids, and she goes, "Okay, you guys ready?" They're like, "Yeah." And she says, "I am smart." And all of them said, "I am smart." And then, "I am beautiful. I am beautiful. I am handsome. I am handsome. And I watched her do these affirmations with her children. She was getting ready to drive them to school. And she did several of them. And at the end, they were all just beaming, like just proud, eh? And they walked out. And that's how they went to school. And I was like, wow, that is so awesome. Thank you, Angeline. Say hi. Angeline is the one that I watched do that. And when me and my kids moved back to Saskatoon, I did that with them every morning. Every morning, I would drop them off at school, and before they got out of the car, they'd all look at me. I am smart. I am beautiful. I am kind. If anybody is being bullied, I will stop it, and I will tell the teacher. I did these affirmations with my kids every morning because I learned it from Angela and from my niece. And it's stuff that I had been taught in training, but I wasn't actively applying it. So thank you, Angeline, for teaching me that. It's stuff that you guys as teachers can do with your classrooms, in your classrooms, doing affirmations, because chances are the kids don't get this at home. Prior to me learning it from Angeline, I wasn't doing it with my own kids. I do it now. The teachers, the feedback from the teachers at every report card day was, your kids are so kind. Your kids are so helpful. Winter's the mediator in the class. Whenever there's bullying going on, Winter stops it. And she makes them sit and talk. She acts like a therapist. I was laughing because I'm a therapist. Children learn what they live. And you as teachers, when you took this, whether it's ITEP or any other teacher program, you weren't just signing up to get a degree in teaching. You were signing up to parent other people's children from 9 till 3 p.m. Some of you might be my children's parents at one point in their lives. Take your role as teachers seriously. Learn about yourselves. Learn your ceremonies. Learn your history. Honor that history. I would like that for my children, if you're teaching my children. I would like them to have the type of role models that I have in my Auntie Darlene and my mom Kim and Auntie Millie and Uncle. Those are the people I learn from, and they walk their talk. They walk it. It's your responsibility to also do that. I thank you for your time. I hope to have the curriculum for my master's program developed. That's my goal for my project, is to develop a program to teach teachers how to work with children that are experiencing trauma or displaying symptoms of intergenerational trauma. Because it's not taught. It's not a class that's taught, and I think it's necessary. I think it's something that needs to happen. Because when you have, like that grade 1 class, when you have children that are projecting what they're seeing at home, you can't teach children that have that mindset. It becomes mob control at that point. You're basically just trying to keep the emotions controlled or contained in the room. And children are not teachable when their emotional self is not being looked after. So that's the message that I have for you, is if you really want to teach these children, also apply whatever you're going to teach them to yourself. Like anything, whether it's in leadership, politics, a community will only be as healthy as its leaders. A classroom will only be as healthy as its teacher. So thank you, everybody.